Daf Pei Dalet Amud Beis, 8 lines from the top, Abaya Amar. We learned previously, we had the brisa that said, the pasuk says that Bevayis Echad Eyeochel Lo Yisayis Min Abayis Min Avasa Chutza Ve'etzem Lo Yisishru Boy. There's the issur of breaking the bone of the Korban Pesach. We had the brisa that Tanakama said that we darshan Etzem Lo Yisishru Boy Bebekosher V'Lo B'Posel, that the issur of breaking the bone only applies to a korban which is kosher, but not to a korban which is possible. And Rebbe darshaned, he said, "B'bayis echad yechal ve'etzem lo yisishru boi." He darshaned that it's called haroy la'achila yesh boi mishum shviras etzem, which ain't roy la'achila ain't boi mishum shviras etzem. So the more asked, what's the nafkamina? Where's the nafkamina between the two interpretations? We learned previously that Rabbi Yosef said that there's a nafkamina, there's a difference in a case where it's hoysuli shasa kaisher. If the korban there had a shasa kaisher, the hakrava was done properly, so it's a kosher korban. It's a kosher korban. But afterwards, the basar became tomei. There was a psul in the basar. You can't eat it. So if you say that it applies to a korban which is kosher, the korban was kosher. But if you say that the criteria is that it has to be roy la'achila, well, right now you can't eat it. By nightfall already, when the korban is supposed to be eaten, when the basar is supposed to be eaten already, it can't be eaten. So therefore, it's not roy la'achila. And therefore, in such a case, we would say, therefore, that the issur of breaking the bone doesn't apply. If you say that the criteria is that it has to be a kosher korban, then it is a kosher korban. The hakrava was done properly. But if you say that the criteria is that it has to be roy la'achila, only roy la'achila, well, this case is not roy la'achila. That's what Rav Yosef said. Abaya says no. He argues. So like the Gemara, Abaya Amar Kol Yalma Ki Hai Gavna Ein Boy Mishum Shiras Ha'etzem. He says no. Everyone would agree in this case that there's no issur of the Shiras Ha'etzem. My time, what's the reason? Because Hashtamiyah HaPosel. Because right now the korban is posel. Even though that at the time of the hakrava it was kosher, but Lamaisa right now, when it's relevant, can you break the bone right now? Well, is this korban right now kosher or posel? Well, right now it's posel. So therefore the issur doesn't apply. So therefore he said in such a case there'd be no issur of shiras ha'etzem. So how does he resolve the issue? What's according to him, the difference between Tanakh and Rebbe? He explains it as follows. The difference between the two in the nafkamina would be, is the issur, does the issur apply on the daytime, the day of Yudal? Leman damar kosher, the one who says that the criteria is where the korban is kosher, that the korban is kosher, so therefore the issur of shiras ha'etzem would apply. Leman damar roy la'achila, but according to Rebbe, who says the criteria is roy la'achila, well, hashta lav barachilu. Right now, it's the day of the Yudalit. The korban pesach is eaten at the nighttime. Now it's not to be eaten, so therefore the issur of breaking the bone would not apply. That's how Abaya understands it. Meisvei, back to Gemara, Kasha, Rabbi Yomer, Nimnan al Mayach Shabaraish. Well, you can join the Chabura. It can be registered on the basis of the marrow that's in the head, that's in the rosh. The marrow is considered basar. In order to be registered for the chabura, you have to be able to eat a gzayis basar. And the mayach is considered a gzayis basar. So you can be registered, you can be joined the chabura on the basis of being able to eat a gzayis of that marrow. But on the marrow of the thigh bone, you can't. So what's a chilik? Al mayach shebarosh my time. Why do we say in the mayach harosh you can? Because you can remove the marrow through the nostrils without breaking the bone. You can remove the marrow through the nostrils, and then the meat is edible, it's accessible. But you can't do it on the thigh bone. You'd have to break the bone to get the marrow. So therefore, it's not accessible, and therefore it's not meat that you can eat. And therefore you can't be nimnim with it. Now, if according to like a bias says that you can break the bone before on the on the day of the Yudal, there's no Isser Shviras Hayatzim. So cool is Nami. So what's the chilek? The thigh bone also. Remove, break it, remove the marrow, and you can eat it at night. So why would you say a nimnin on the marrow of the kulis? Amar la Chabaya, I will answer, even according to you, well, even after nightfall. Why do you have to say on the daytime? Even in nightfall, take a coal or a burning ember and burn a hole in it, in the thigh bone, and then and remove the marrow. The Isser is breaking the bone, but burning a hole in it, there's no Isser of burning a hole in it. And then you can register on the Chabur, you can be part of the Chabur. The Isser is breaking the bone. But if one burns a hole in the bone, or he cuts the sinews, it's not a bone, it's sinews, there's no Isser Shiras Hayatzim. So why isn't that an Eitzah? Why do you say ein nimnin on the Mayach and the Kulis? What must you say? So Abai Amar Mishum Paka Paka. Because we're afraid if you use a coal, then you'll crack the bone. The bone will be cracked, and instead of burning a hole, it'll cause it to crack. And that is considered breaking the bone. So therefore, we don't allow you to burn it. So therefore, the Mayach and the Kulis is not accessible. And Rava Amar Mishum Hefset Kach. Rava says a different reason. Why do we not allow you to do this? Because we're afraid that you might burn the marrow, which would involve not having it become nicer memela, but not saying it would involve not just leaving it and therefore you won't be able to eat it, but you're not doing it biyadayim. This would involve destroying it biyadayim. So Dilma achal nura mimayach didei, because we're afraid that the fire will consume the marrow. So we rather have it happen mimela, where you don't do anything biyadayim, even though you're not going to eat it, and it'll end up being nicer, rather than you destroy it biyadayim. So, therefore, since we don't allow this at nighttime, therefore, I'll tell you, Abaya says that no, the Isser breaking the bone does not apply during the day of Yadalit. So why isn't it an Eitzah to break the bone of the kulis and remove the marrow mibayid yaim? Because here also you have a similar type of issue. Mibayid yaim nami gzeir mibayid yaim. It's also the same type of issue. We don't want you to break the bone in the daytime because we're afraid that you'll think breaking the bone is mutter and you'll do it at nighttime, and that's why. So therefore we say that we don't allow breaking the bone, and it's the meat therefore the marrow will become inaccessible. So that's the way Abaye explained the chilik between the Tanakh and Rebbe. Now the more brings another pshat. Rapapa, he says a different pshat. Kol ki hai gavna. He says if it's daytime, then it's a kosher korban. But it's only the daytime of Yudalit. Kol yalmi yesh boi mishum shiras hayatzim. He argues on Abaye. He says no. Everyone would agree that the Isser does apply. My timer. Because it's a kosher korban, and even according to Rebbe, it's roy lachila. Maybe not at this moment, but by nighttime it will be. And the relevant time is nighttime. So therefore, even Rebbe would agree there's an isser of breaking the bone. Ella, he says, be'ever, he says, what's the difference between which cases are chilek be'ever she'atzim iksosa kemeflagi? It's in a case where part of the limb went out from its designated place. It went out of the wall of Yerushalayim. The Korban Pesach has to be eaten within the walls of Yerushalayim, it's Kach Mekalim. Anything that went beyond the wall is Yoitze and becomes apostle. So we're talking about a limb that's partially out. So therefore, Man Adomer Kosher, the Tanakh says the criteria is whether it's kosher, high kosher. The aver is kosher. Umandam roy lachila, but Rebbe says the criteria is roy lachila, well high la barachilu. But the part that extended out is not roy lachila. That's possible as yaitze. And therefore, there would be no isser in breaking that part of it because it's not roy lachila anyway. Like we learned in the Brisa, he says, if you have a case of an aver, she also makes also shvara, a limb that was partially outside of Yerushalayim, and he broke it, ain't by mishum shviras ha'etzem. The isser of shviras ha'etzem does not apply. So therefore, you would have the nafkamina in such a case. In fact, Taisus Akasha, it's not clear. Why do we say, as far as roy lachila, we look at it in terms from the perspective of the part that's outside. And in terms of kosher, we view it from the perspective of the limb that's inside. Why should we view it that way? The part that's outside is not roy lachila, but it's not kosher either. The part that's inside is kosher, and it's also roy lachila. So why should we view it from the perspective of inside or outside differently, whether the criteria is roy lachila or kosher? So this does not give an explanation. Another shot, another Pirush Roshesh's Brei Ravidi Omar, he says, no, kol ki hai gavna, in such a case, ukli alma, ein boy mishum shviras ha'etzem. He says there's no enough community in this case because everyone would agree there's no shviras ha'etzem. The high aver ha-posel, because the aver is posel. The aver is outside, is partially outside, and therefore you can't consider it to be a kosher aver because the part that's outside is posel. So that's not the difference between the two. The difference is whether the isra of breaking the bone applies to a aver, to the bone where it was partially roasted. It's not fully roasted, it's partially roasted. Man Domer kosher, the one who says the criteria, Tanakama says whether the criteria is whether it's kosher or kosher, the korban is kosher. Uman Domer roy lachila, but Rebbe says roy lachila, hashtain roy lachila. This is not, it's not roasted, it's not roy lachila. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, he says, Kol ki hai gavni, he says, no, in such a case, yesh ba mishum shviras ha'etzem. Everyone would agree that there is shviras ha'etzem, even Rebbe would agree. My time, because of the chazal achila, because it is royal achila. Maybe not at the moment, but it is. The matulei lakle, just continue roasting it, finish the roasting, and it'll be royal achila. So therefore, everyone agree that the isser of breaking the bone applies. Ela shviras ha'alya benayu, the chiluk is by shviras ha'alya, by breaking the tailbone of the tail. Now the alya of a lamb is not eaten. It's burnt on the mizbeach. So Laman Domar kosher, the one who says Tanakama says the criteria is whether it's kosher or kosher. It's kosher. But Laman Domar roy lachila, Rebbe says the criteria has to be roy lachila, that edible, high-end roy lachila. This is not roy lachila because the halil gavoya salka, because it's not eaten. It's not a part that's eaten. It's going to be burnt on the mizbeach. And therefore, he would hold that the issue of breaking the bone does not apply in this case. Rav Ashi Omri says, no. Kol ki hai gavna, he says, Vadai ein boy mishum shviras ha'etzem. Everyone would agree that there's no isser of shviras ha'etzem over here. Vadai ein roy lachila klal, because this is not going to be eaten at all. So what's the pshat? That it's not going to be eaten klal. So the pshat is, and it's before from some of the achreinim and Minchas Chinuch and others, that the pshat is as follows. Now, even though the Tanakama says the criteria is royal achila, but the pasuk that it's referring to says, "B'bayis echad yeyoch lo yisveisim min habayis min abas v'chutza ve'etzem lo yisishru boy." So he dash in the Tanakama is boy b'kasher lo b'pasuk. But in the context of the pasuk, it says, "B'bayis echad yeyochal." We're talking about something that is eaten. Now, even though the Tanakama says the particular isser breaking the bone is not relevant dafka to the part that to something that's eaten, and the criteria is that it's kosher, but it has to be something that is in the parsha of something that's going to be eaten. It's talking about the part of the korban that is going to be eaten. We're not discussing a part of a korban that's not going to be eaten. Now he says that it's referring to the part referring to a korban, the part of the korban that's going to be eaten, the criteria is kosher. But if we're discussing a part of the korban that's not eaten at all, then he would agree that there's no isser, the etzem loisish b'boy. So therefore, he says in such a case, there's no isser, because havana ain't a royal achila klal. It's not fit to be eaten at all. Ella, he says, Eiver she'ena love kazayis balsari kabinai. The chilik is you have meat, and it is going to be eaten, but you don't have a kazayis of balsar. Lamand Omar kosher, according to the Tanna Kama says kosher or kosher. Now the korban is kosher. It's talking about an edible part. It's talking about a part that's not, but you don't have a shear of the kazayis. So therefore, it's referring to something. It's the pasuk is referring to, but eating, you eat the meat. But the criteria is, boy, be kosher, like apostle, and this is therefore kosher, and therefore the Yisr applies. But Lamandam Royal Achila, according to Rebbe, it says that it has to be Royal Achila, being Shira Achila, Veleka, and this doesn't have a Shira Achila. Ravina Omar, he says, no, Kol Ki Ai Gavna, less by Mishum Shiras Etzem. He says, he takes it even a step further, meaning he agrees with Rav Ashi's basic premise that even according to the Tanna Kama, the context of the pasuk and the pasuk pshat in the pasuk is that it has to be you're talking about what's eaten, but he takes it a step further, and he holds the Tanna Kama holds that it even has to be referring to something that you eat and has a shirachil. So therefore, in such a case, everyone would agree that that everyone would agree in Kol Ki Ai Gavna, there's no din, there's no Isser of Shiras Hatzim to be in Shir Achila, because you need the Shir Achila. Ela Eva she'en lav kazayis b'osar b'makam zeh v'yesh lav kazayis b'osar b'makam achri k'beinayim. The chiluk is, you have, in totality, there is a shir, there's a kazayis, but it's not in this spot. It's only if you combine it with what's in a different area. Lamand Homer kosher, according to Tanna Kama, says the criteria is that it's kosher. HaKosher is a korban that's kosher, and it is referring to a case where you have to eat the basar. There's no kazayis here, but you are required to eat a kazayis basar, and there is a kazayis basar. Lamand Homer royal achila, according to Rebbe, says royal achila being shir achila b'makam shvir. It is the overriding criteria is that achila, so at the place where the Isser Shvira applies, means that there has to be a shir of achila on that place where you're breaking the bone. V'haleka, and you don't have it in this case, so the Isser would not apply. Tanya Ka'arba Minai, we have a brisa that supports the opinion of 4 of these 8 shitas that we have. We had 8 ways to explain the chilik between Rebbe and Tanna Kama. The brisa supports 4 of them. Desanya Rebbe, Omer Rebbe says, Babayis echad ye'echol v'etzem loisish b'boy. The Torah says that you cannot break the bone. Therefore, we say Allah kosher chayev and chayev al apostle. It's only a korban that's kosher, not apostle. If it had, the korban had a shasa kosher, so the time of the korban was kosher. And later on, it became possible at the time of eating, ein boy mishum shviras etzem. There's no din of shviras etzem. So this supports Rav Yosef, the chilik that Rav Yosef said, that you see that the Rebbe says that if there was a shasa kosher, then there was a shasa kosher, still it has to be roy la achila at the time of achila. Just because there was a shasa kosher, then if it becomes possible later, then it's not roy la achila. This is Rebbe's opinion, that therefore it's not roy la achila. There's no din of ein boy mishum etzem tishber boy. This doesn't apply. Now Rebbe says v'im yesh boy shir achila. However, if there is a leftover, there is a minimum shir achila. There's a shir achila that's kosher. Yesh boy mishum shviras hatzam. Ein boy shir achila. Then ein boy mishum shviras hatzam. But if there's no shir achila, there's no din of shviras hatzam. So you see, Ravina's pshat that the criteria is that it has to be a shir of achila. Then it says haroy. It continues, says haroy lemizbeach ein boy mishum shviras hatzam. If it is part of that is the tail, the aliyah, that is not for Achilas Adam, it's from Mizbeach, there's no Isser Shiras Hasem. That's like Rav Nachman Yitzchak. And then it says, B'shas Achila, where does the Isser apply? Is at the time of the eating. B'shas Achila, Yesh Ba Mishum Shiras Hasem. Shalei B'shas Achila, Ein Ba Mishum Shiras Hasem. When does it apply? It applies at the time of eating, at the 15th at night. But on Yud Dalet in the afternoon, which is not the time of eating, there's no Isser Shiras Hasem, which is like Abaya.